All right, Mountaineer Nation, thanks for tuning in to another edition of Fox on West Virginia Mountaineer Sports, a baseball edition, as I review the month of April. I know I came on just over a week ago to talk about West Virginia's demoralizing loss in the backyard base brawl to the Pitt Panthers 23-1, but as I like to do here on my channel, reviewing some of the regular seasons, mainly basketball and baseball, that have longer seasons, so it's better to analyze it in about a month's capacity, or maybe sometimes a couple of weeks, something like that, rather than individual games, individual series. I want to give my recap of the month of April, so please hit that like button so that this video can reach more Mountaineer fans across YouTube. Hit that thumbs up. It helps out the algorithm. Really would appreciate it. And I'd also love to have you as a subscriber to my channel as I talk football, basketball, baseball, and we'll have other fun things in the world of college sports to talk about, like expansion of the NCAA tournament, or West Virginia having this new access to a credit line through the Big 12 Conference's new partnership with a private equity firm. You never know what we're going to be talking about on this channel, or executive orders. It's just nuts. But I like to keep it on the field. So let's talk about the month that was April for the West Virginia baseball squad that entered the month second in the Big 12 standings. Now had about a bit of a mediocre month, 8-7. West Virginia lost its first series of the month, that which was its first losing series of the season, against the number then 23 UCF Knights at home. Then ended up the next week 10 running Marshall. The following week on the road down in Lubbock, Texas, took 2 of 3 against Texas Tech. Always nice to win there. Then came back to a neutral site contest on Wednesday, April 15th, beating Penn State 3-1. Then taking just 2 of 3 from the last place team in the Big 12 Conference in a home series against the Houston Cougars, in the weekend that also contained the West Virginia Football Spring Festival. Then the following Tuesday night was that backyard base brawl loss. I won't mention the score again. Historically bad game for the Mountaineers. Then last weekend, West Virginia took on Cincinnati on the road, won on Saturday, a game that spanned both Friday into Saturday, 13 innings, called Friday night due to weather conditions in Cincinnati. It was crazy rain there. West Virginia won that game 9-5, then lost the second game of the doubleheader on Saturday, or if you want to call it that, a doubleheader, 5-2, and then lost the rubber match on Sunday 7-5. Wednesday's game was canceled, unfortunately, due to weather. I don't know, just Mother Nature just doesn't want the Nittany Lions and the Mountaineers to play each other on the baseball diamond, and Penn State isn't all that invested in its baseball program really at all, so it's not like you're canceling a football game or making any kind of schedule changes there. But so I want to talk about the good, I want to talk about the bad, and then kind of like where this program's kind of headed. I feel like as of right now and looking forward, as there's now just 10 games remaining in the regular season, then West Virginia will compete in the single elimination Big 12 tournament, and then hopefully we'll be participating in an NCAA regional. So where I want to start this video off, now that West Virginia is 28-12, 13-8 in Big 12 play, 4th in the Big 12 standings, and sitting in the top 25 in the country, and that is that we, Mountaineer Nation, need to appreciate times like this. I'm 32 years old, almost 33, and I have to say that I feel like I lived through what might have been the golden era of West Virginia athletics, with how good. I know I never got to see a national championship. Born in 93, so that was West Virginia's undefeated season. Didn't see the Major Harris 1988 national championship game. But I've seen a Final Four. I've seen West Virginia compete in all 3 of its BCS Bowl games. I was at the game on December 1st, 2007, against the team that shall not be named. And I just feel like I was spoiled in and of my own right in that era to grow up at that point in time, to love West Virginia football, West Virginia basketball, fall in love with the team, all of its sports, etc., to the point that it's taken these last 6 years of suck, moderately in basketball and, definitely in football, to come back to this state of appreciation for when West Virginia is nationally ranked. West Virginia, in baseball, for the better part of 3 seasons now, has enjoyed weekly rankings in the national top 25. Of course, they won the Big 12 regular season title last season, 2 seasons ago, getting to a regional. I know that West Virginia, in the course of the last decade, has hosted a regional, has had multiple players drafted in the first round of the Major League Baseball draft. So this is a really, really freaking good time to be a West Virginia baseball fan. And I just have to say, with everything, as I talked about in the onset of this video, that's ancillarily happening off the field in college sports, and the just unbelievably challenging circumstances that West Virginia faces for talent acquisition in competition with now the SEC teams and the Big Ten teams, predominantly goes down to football and basketball, but all of it's a comprehensive thing that you have to be able to afford financially, compensating the players to get talent, to be able to compete in this form and fashion, to be in the national top 25, to make regionals, to have even the chance to potentially talk about going anywhere further. You have to invest, and it's only going to get harder from here on out for West Virginia to keep up with the Joneses and to get top 25 high school transfer recruiting classes. So I don't want to get too far ahead of myself and talk about that, what's happening off the field. And then I don't want to really use this video to talk how it's all cohesively working between football, basketball, and baseball. But just, I will say, enjoy the ride. Right now, it doesn't look as if West Virginia is already, nearing as many losses as it had for the 2025 season. So with 10 games here on out, I feel as if West Virginia can go 5 or 6, wins to, 5 to 4 losses, that West Virginia will stay hovering right around that national top 25. We'll be talking about an at-large bid for the NCAA tournament, maybe not host a regional, but still probably be a 2 seed against a team that West Virginia can compete against in a regional if it plays its best baseball. And this will still be what will be considered a very promising, very good year. Maybe not to the level of, again, you're matching last year, and maybe that was the expectation that was felt. But there is still so much on the table for this West Virginia baseball team. There's so much of a story that still can be written. And where I got to start off first with the good for this video is starting pitcher Chansen Cole. In April, he was freaking money. 5 appearances, went 3-1 in wins and losses, 23.1 innings pitched, allowing just 5 earned runs. He was awesome against Texas Tech on April 12th. 8 innings pitched, just 2 earned runs on 8 hits, 2 walks, and a hit batsman. And then this past Saturday against Cincinnati, he was the ace in the hole that Coach Saban's went to. Reese Bassinger really worked his tail off to get West Virginia fighting in those extra innings. And then coming out on Saturday's contest, you weren't going to bring him back into the contest to pick right back up where he was pitching. That's not really how baseball works. So coming in, bringing in Chansen Cole, he goes 1 2/3 innings. You get enough offense to win that contest. That was awesome. He's been great. One of these other, Division II pickups alongside Ian Korn, alongside Dawson Montesa. Think about Griffin Kern. Previously last year, Chansen Cole, another D2 transfer that is just paying dividends for West Virginia, and you got to consider that was a smart decision starting off the season by Coach Steve Saban's, keeping Maxx Yehl in the rotation and going with Chansen Cole. He's been excellent all season long, and he really flourished in the month of April. Also timely hitting late in games. Matthew Groveland coming up clutch with the walk-off win against UCF, which was incredibly satisfying back then on Saturday, April 4th. He also had the go-ahead 2 RBI single at Texas Tech, the Friday game that West Virginia needed to win late. Matt Einish coming through with a insurance 2 RBI double, giving West Virginia enough distance to really win that game soundly. But it was thanks to Groveland there in both of those efforts. And I got to give a lot of credit also just recently for Maxx Yehl this past weekend. Had the 2 RBI double at Cincinnati in the 13th inning to put West Virginia ahead. So West Virginia is getting these timely RBI hits late, which is making it, the kind of comeback kid kind of feel. So just really, really nice to see and really, exhilarating during the month of April, and you hope West Virginia can keep it up. Got to continue to just give the props to Gavin Kelly. I know he suffered an injury that cost him half of the game on Saturday, April 18th against Houston. Then he missed the Sunday's contest, but still top 25 in the country with a 394 batting average, still over an 1100 OPS. Not the same numbers or same trajectory as we were talking about, 2023 J.J. Weatherholt, but was that 2023? I'm missing my year. Yeah, 2023 J.J. Weatherholt, but still, he is the all-star, all-conference type of player in the heart of West Virginia's order, who's going to be feared every time that he comes up to the plate, and has enough power and showing it this year that if you miss pitches on him, he's going to take you to the warning track and beyond every single time he gets up to the plate. And then same with Paul Schoenfeld, really nice addition, 369 batting average, nearing an 1100 OPS. So giving Kelly a little bit of insurance protection in the order that you're seeing some of that happen. I feel like that I've seen so far. I think it asks the other players in the lineup to kind of pick it up a little bit. But Gavin Kelly, Paul Schoenfeld, really good 1-2 punch in the middle of this West Virginia batting order and keeping opponents honest. I'll also say this is a defensive unit that's still 34th in the country, best in the Big 12 in fielding percentage, also has the fewest errors with the most turned double plays of any team in the Big 12. So defensively, West Virginia's up to snuff. Although, I do trust Ben Lumsden more over at first base with the glove, scooping balls out of the turf than I do Armani Guzman. Armani Guzman, incredibly talented athlete. Some of the plays that he's made this year to keep his foot on the bag, go up and catch errant throws and stab tag somebody who's trying to make a play over at first, really good. But then there's some times that just he's not. He's never played the position before, so I understandably get it. Fielding that position, especially coming up with those scoops, and sometimes when there's just errant throws, that can happen. So I just feel a little more confident with Ben Lumsden over there defensively than I do Armani Guzman on those scooping the balls out of the turf. Would I love to see him? You know what? I'll hold that thought. I'll hold that thought and come back to it. So I want to go into, just for a little bit here, I've given it a lot of thought over the course of these last few days. I want to touch on, the debate between Dawson Montesa and Ian Korn for keeping both of those guys in the weekend starting lineup, switching one for the other. It's really much dependent upon Maxx Yehl's injury. And read a good article today from the Wheeling and Tellinger's Spencer Ripchick, getting the notes from him saying that it didn't really sound definitive on a date, but Coach Saban saying it wasn't going to be a long-term injury to Yehl after the Houston series. Saban said, quote, his test was really good, a little bit banged up, and he had some pain in his shoulder and a little pain in his bicep, but not in those target areas that you get really concerned about. That doesn't tell me he's not saying there, he's going to be back in a week. Does that mean he's going to miss another Big 12 series? Is he, two or after, is he going to miss the Marshall game too? Even though it probably wouldn't be pitching one of those weekday games anyway. Just hard to tell. So I don't know if it's necessarily worth going debating who would you take, Dawson Montesa, Ian Korn, because I think West Virginia is going to have to have both those guys if Maxx Yehl faces any sort of an injury. And let's just be honest, if Maxx Yehl is out with the absence that you already have because of Chase Meyer's dismissal on this team, that's going to knock West Virginia down a peg. I don't know if that's a team that's going to, I don't know, anything can happen over the course of just three Big 12 series left, but you need him to make a postseason run. That's just the way that I feel about it. You're gonna he would probably be your game one starter in the Big 12 tournament. So, but let's just not get too far ahead of ourselves there. But anyway, debating this about Montesa and Korn is that the one good thing, or a couple of good things watching Montesa enough now this season, is he's a pitches eater, not necessarily as much of an innings eater, and he can throw gas, absolute gas, touching the upper 90s. We've seen this all season long, so he has the propensity to go deeper in games than what we've seen Korn. Korn just finally hit 5 innings in an appearance in his relief effort of Yehl back on the 18th. In April, though, it's, looking at these numbers, 7 appearances, 2 wins, 19 2/3 innings pitched, only allowed 6 earned runs, 19 strikeouts to 2 walks, but Korn has to go deeper into games if he's going to get the starting nod out there. Just not getting deep enough into game, only throwing into about 70 pitches, and I'm not as much concerned about the pitch count as I need to see him go deeper into games. I can see that out of Montesa, and it just seems like West Virginia is pulling him at the right time, turning to a bullpen arm that Korn's not getting himself into trouble in the way that Coach Saban's is offering that leash, putting the trust into Montesa, and he just gets nicked on one home run ball, one bad inning, and that's why you see, Montesa has 54 innings pitched to Korn's 40 2/3, but that's where Korn has him, almost 3 points better, three runs better, in ERA. The difference, taking a look at pitching styles between Montesa and Korn, or effectiveness, however you want to call it, when I look at walks plus hit batsmen, which is a factor I'm noticing in college baseball as I watch more and more of it over the last few years, Montesa's got Korn's got Montesa 32-9 in this area. So Montesa speaks to what I'm talking about with pitches, is he throws more pitches. And we saw this out of Griffin Kern a little bit last year. But just like the difference being Kern wasn't hit as hard, even though he didn't throw as hard as Montesa. Could still throw hard, but not as hard as Montesa. But was a little bit wild. It could be at times on just any given start. So I think that speaks to, or maybe can be the rationale, logical reason why Coach Saban's sticking with Montesa in those Friday night games, not switching to Korn. But I'd just be very curious to see if Yehl comes back, does Coach Saban's ride the hot hand move Korn into the starting rotation? I said a couple of weeks ago that would have been, maybe makes sense to try and test this out before the Penn State series, then coming in with Houston. But again, the injury that happened to Korn, you didn't get that chance to do that and maybe pitch Montesa in the backyard brawl. So I don't know. Where do you come down on Montesa versus Korn? Or again, do you think it's kind of like a moot point, Mountaineer Nation, because of Yehl's injury? How do you feel about that one? If you're just asking me, Carson, you make the decision here. If Yehl's healthy, I would go Korn. I would go, Yehl on a Friday, Korn on Saturday, and then Chansen Cole on Sunday, or however you want to fit, 1, 2, 3. But that would be my 3, and Montesa's kind of the odd man out. But again, I need to see Korn go deeper into a game, throw more pitches, to show that he can do that, so you don't tax your bullpen as much. In Montesa's case, you just can't have that one bad blow-up inning. That's just really what it comes down to with him. Is he just has, he can look really good for about 3 solid innings, get through the order once, and then, people just start to time him up somehow, and he gets taken deep, or he misses a pitch high, and you just have, or, has one wild inning with how many walks and hit batsmen he's had, and that's where he can get into trouble. So I know that was kind of like a, sidebar in my good versus bad. Where West Virginia is struggling, and this has been something I talked about in the preseason. I hope I'm not beating a dead horse at this point in time. If you've watched my baseball videos and you're just like, all right, Carson, we get it, is West Virginia's 247th in the country and last in the Big 12 with 27 home runs. Now, again, I'm not asking for West Virginia's everybody in their order to drop their back shoulder, focus on launch angle, and just try and hit, bombs out of the ballpark like we saw a lot with the Pitt Panthers a couple of nights ago. But, bottom half of the Big 12 in slugging percentage and RBIs. Just to compare, West Virginia's squad last year, which was a talking point that I can recall talking about last year, they hit 60 home runs as a team. West Virginia's less than half that this year. So truly, 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 if West Virginia is not manufacturing runs, sinking hits in order, creating havoc on the base paths, in which they are doing a good job, stolen bases, moving station to station, doing all that. I'm not saying that this year. But if you don't have that, that's where West Virginia can get into trouble, or just is hindered because you don't have the kind of power that some of the big hitting teams in this conference have, or at least have shown it. And I started to look this up because then I was thinking, is it a left on base problem? And so I looked at all of the games that West Virginia's lost during the month of April, and there's only one contest in which West Virginia left more than 7 runners on base, and that was this past Sunday against Cincinnati. Left 10 runners on base. Only 2 contests in which it lost, West Virginia had more players left on base than their opponent. So I had to go to my good friend Baseball Reference and say, hey, ask it a question. How many runners in a Division I typical game are left on base by the end of the contest? And they said anywhere between 6 to 8 on average. So again, out of those losses, 2 games against UCF, 1 against Texas Tech, Houston, Pitt, Cincinnati. The first loss of the Cincinnati series, West Virginia was right in that ballpark. It really just came down to one game, this past Sunday's game, which felt incredibly frustrating given the way West Virginia was up 5-2 in that game late in the 8th inning. You give up 5 runs in the 8th inning and you lose that game 7-5. I just couldn't freaking believe it. I'm not gonna lie, I was doing yard work at that time. I was listening to the ESPN broadcast on my phone outside, walked away from doing a lot of mulching. And what do you know? I checked the score again. It's 7-5. I'm like, what the heck? What happened? So I don't think that you can just create power out of thin air. There's no one in this lineup that's the kind of home run threat that, say, a Landon Hairston, is for Arizona State, who just, but, as I said it kind of like earlier on in this video, Gavin Kelly can hit at all fields and has that kinds of power. I guess just more so of, think of like a Grant Hussey, one of those kinds of hitters. But I trust Coach Sabins to make this right call. So if I want to move on to my next category of what I want to talk about, is how I have my trust in Coach Sabins to make the right moves with the lineup card. That was a bold, tough decision last year to sit the program's all-time home run record holder in Grant Hussey for Ben Lumsden, who came up huge in the Clemson game and the Kentucky game of the regional last year, and actually had really good effort in the LSU game in the second game of the 3-game series last year. So far, Coach Sabins has made the right moves, and I just, as of right now, there hasn't been a reason for me as a fan to call for any type of decisions. I mean, like, there are some things that, like, not going to lie, I've been thinking about. I've been mulling over, of course, the Montesa versus the Korn switch with the pitching staff, again, because of the dismissal injury, or the dismissal to Meyer, the injury to Yehl. We can't talk about the debate as of right now between Montesa and Korn. You could a couple of weeks ago, and then just things got crazy. But when in the lineup, Maxx Yehl is really hitting the ball hard. Hard to keep him out of the order. And I also think Ben Lumsden's getting hotter. And you'd like to get him hot this time of the year for the postseason run. Hitting just over the Mendoza line, but he is just very clutch, it seems like. And maybe that's what you save him for. You save him for those late game pinch hit roles. That's not a problem for him. To switch those guys out at first base for Armani Guzman, so you could play Guzman back over at third base, or potentially even in the outfield over a Tyrus Hall or a Brock Wills. Nothing against those guys. Love having them as depth pieces, but Guzman's got a little bit better speed. Trust him. I don't know. That's kind of like the argument. Who do you start out of those three guys? Out of those three positions, pick your best two for me. That's the kind of the debate that I'm wondering about. And is Brody Kresser really the odd man out? I know that he's not, I think either fully healthy, or I know he dealt with an injury last year, so maybe we're just seeing what's left of Brody Kresser for his last season of college baseball. Not the everyday starting shortstop, Matt Einish, playing tremendous shortstop. Just saw right before I started recording this video, he's on the short list for National Shortstop of the Year in college baseball as semifinalist. So if you're playing Kelly at second, you have Groveland at catcher. Kind of the odd man out on the field is Brody Kresser, who you could play at first base and plays pretty good defense. But is that bat anything better than the other guys that I've been talking about? We don't know what, if you gave regular at-bats to Montesa, would look like. Again, maybe Lumsden's a guy who comes off the bench, even though I think he has RBI and power potential. That's just some of the things that if I could ask, give some truth serum to Coach Saban's, would love to pick his mind on that. And I want to watch that moving forward over these next 3 series, 2 of them being at home. How do these guys this is where it's crunch time. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is positioning for the postseason. Who is West Virginia? Who are West Virginia's best 10 hitters? Because you got a DH. And when it comes down to the pitching staff looking forward, I want to see the starters go to deeper in games. Montesa, Korn, Hagen. I know Montesa can go deeper in games, but does he avoid some of those blow-up innings? Does he toss more crooked numbers? And then also to some of these guys start to figure it out in the bullpen. I'm looking at Ben McDougal. David Perez didn't have as strong of an April as he did as a March, but still trust him holding down that closer, or however you want to use him, maybe for multiple innings type of high leverage reliever. Carson Estridge looking good just recently, and I really like the good Reese Bassinger. Reese Bassinger's good is very good. His bad can sometimes get West Virginia into trouble, but with that depth that you have, like I said already, you need Yehl back. You need Yehl back. You wish Meyer didn't get dismissed, or that those two guys could have figured some sort of a, could reconcile the situation. But I think you're now at the point of no return, that Chase Meyer's, gone, going to be in the transfer portal once the season's over. So West Virginia's kind of out of options of where does it go. For more, you need as many arms as humanly possible for this stretch run in the season. You need your best warriors to fight your toughest battles. So I give you a lot to chew on there. Again, this ride, though, enjoy it, Mountaineer Nation. Again, I want West Virginia to win. I want them to continue to compete in the national top 25 rankings. If West Virginia can move up just a little bit more, I know that RPI number is kind of scary, that they're in the back 20s. So the chance of hosting a regional, that West Virginia might need help with the, from the tournament committee look more so at the D1baseball.com rankings more so than the RPI rankings, but we'll see how that goes. But it's going to be fun, and I think West Virginia could really do the fans a service if it goes out there and plays its best baseball, because West Virginia has been really, as a fan base, I feel like supportive of this West Virginia baseball team, even again in that, how many thousands fans showed up for that backyard brawl game just a week or so ago. And if West Virginia is able to host a regional, will show out. I'm sure the crowds are going to look really nice for this Kansas State series, and then of course the TCU series to end the regular season. So would love to know your thoughts, where West Virginia stands right now, how you feel about it moving forward into the month of May. Let me know your comments here in the comment section on YouTube. Again, please like this video so more Mountaineer fans can see it across YouTube. Would love to have you a subscriber to my channel. And tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog that I do this each and every week and have a lot of fun doing it. So hail West Virginia. Let's go.